I wouldn't be who I am today had I not been homeless, been to jail, been arrested, been stolen money. Fill in the blank with everything that I've ever done. Everything that I've ever been through in my life has led me up to this point.
And then everything changed, right?
Yeah, everything changed.
What
So
happened? I want to start at the beginning of your story. What was your family dynamic like growing up?
I had a great family. I had two loving parents. My dad was a strict dad, but he could be he was fair. He was strict at times, but he was fair. I wish I could say that there was some crazy thing that happened to me in my childhood that was an excuse for my behavior or my alcoholism and drug addiction or any addiction that I had. But there wasn't anything. You know, we went to church every Sunday. My parents were involved at church. I was involved in youth group. We loved each other. We ate dinner every night. We sat at the table and ate dinner together at least 4 nights a week, which is, I mean, that's uncommon for in today's world, you know? I mean, it was great. We had a nice house, two cars, we had a pool, you know, I can't say anything bad. We were very close to my external family, you know, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. We were really close as a big family. We celebrated birthdays together. We had lunch on Saturdays together. So it was good. I mean, you know, I played sports. No, it doesn't seem like it today, but I still play sports today. No, I played tennis, golf, basketball, baseball. Played, you know, my parents were very encouraging. You know, they were very supportive. They were great. I mean, I can't say anything bad about them.
Was there anyone in your family tree that had any sort of addiction or signs of addiction like that before you?
Yeah. So I'll start with this. When I was 13, I found out that that my dad, that I know as my dad today, was not my biological father. My biological father, he is an alcoholic or was an alcoholic. He passed away, but he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and probably addicted to some other things too. My my dad, who is my dad today, he's an alcoholic. He's got 40, I think 42 years of sobriety today. My mom was in recovery for a long time. So yeah, it was a huge part of my life growing up. My parents were very active in a 12-step recovery community for a long, long time. And my dad still is today. So yeah, it was part of their background. And it was in my DNA. Let's say that, because my mom and my biological father are both addicts slash alcoholics. So yeah, for sure.
It doesn't seem like addiction just happens overnight. It's a sort of gradual process. How would you describe the start of an addiction to drugs or alcohol?
You're right. I don't think it is it's not, it doesn't happen overnight. For me, it was I went to, I remember going to a party when I was, I guess about 13 years old, and the party that we were at, there was a liquor cabinet at this girl's house, and we broke into the liquor cabinet and took the alcohol and we drank it. And the first time that I drank and got drunk, I went from feeling different than other kids, different than other people, feeling out of place, to feeling like I fit in. I felt like I was the cool kid. I felt like I could talk to girls. I still can't talk to girls today. Thank God I'm married. But, I felt like was, I felt like a part of something. I felt like I fit in. And so I think that for me, it was that feeling of inclusiveness that did it. Now I know from my experience in a 12-step program that there are people who there's an underlying cause or underlying circumstance that they try to cover up in their past, whether it be sexual abuse, physical abuse, or anything that they're trying to forget, and whatever it takes to numb that pain. You know, I just know that from my experience with other alcoholics and drug addicts. So they spend a lot of their time trying to fill that void with drugs, alcohol, fill in the blank, you know. And for me, it was just like that helped me to fit in, and I would do anything to fit in. So that's kind of, and then it just kind of, I realized I had found something that helped me fit in. And so it was, and it felt good to, to feel a part of. And so whatever I could do to continue to feel that way, I was going to keep doing it. And, regardless of the consequences, and the consequences got worse.
Would you say that addiction and obsession are the same thing? Because it seems like people can be obsessed maybe for a moment over anything, and then it kind of just goes away. Is addiction more intentional than that, or is it more severe?
I would, I wouldn't say that they're the same. I guess you could say that they're similar. Addiction is, in my opinion, a lot more severe. Addiction is. I've always thought, I've always thought of addiction as being one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. So, once I would start, I couldn't stop. But there was an obsession that comes, I guess the two maybe go hand in hand, because there was an obsession that comes with that addiction. And that was that when I wasn't drinking or using or fill in the blank with whatever it was at the time, I was thinking about it, and or thinking about how I could get it. And that even came with things like porn. If I wasn't, I was always thinking about it. And so, which is an obsession. I mean, that's obsession. That's a definition of obsession. And so I think that the two probably go hand in hand rather than being separate from each other, or the same, or even the same for as each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For me, I guess the two went hand in hand. And even still to this day, I mean, food, I mean, like, I struggle with food today, like I love donuts. I just crushed some meshes like right before I came. And I've been thinking about meshes since last night, it's just like that, I think that's where I feel like the two go hand in hand.
I had a lot of shame and guilt about an obsession that I had when I was in high school. I was introduced to porn when I was in middle school, junior high, somewhere at that point. And being a young guy who's trying to learn about something on his own is very dangerous. I think I can recall a total of 0 conversations with an adult on the topic of sex and purity and marriage, things like that. So what does that lead to? That leads to an obsession with sex, how to figure it out, how to learn about it. And so porn was just this thing that you could go to, and it was so easy to access as a kid. Anyone who has the internet can just find it. It was just this thing that was a part of my past. It's no longer part of my life anymore, like, thank God. But I had to like choose to stop doing that. What kind of experience was that like for you?
It wasn't really early on in my life that I found, I guess, porn, but it was the age of the internet, and to be able to, you know, find that, that became a problem for me. And it's not today, thank God. But like you said, I mean, that was something that I had to turn over to God because I couldn't do it on my own. I knew that. Left to my own devices, left to my own decisions, that was going to continue to be a problem for me forever. So it was a struggle, and it's, I think the hardest thing about it is that you pick up your phone and it's just there for you, and I was in a D group with some guys, and just like the ability to be able to share that openly with people, and have help, like, to get through that. It was tough for me. It was tough early on in my relationship with the Lord to be able to move past that. But it really didn't come for me as an addiction for me until the age of smartphones and the internet, within your hand. It wasn't before that. There was many other things, but
Take me back to a regular day when drug and alcohol addiction was prevalent in your life. Can you walk me through what
yeah.
the average day looked like for you?
So, I mean, I would sleep till noon ish, and I'd get up, and the rest of my day would be, or the next few hours would be usually figuring out how I was going to hustle up some money to get whatever I needed for that night. And that most of the time that meant manipulating my grandmother or stealing from my grandmother. My parents by that time had cut me off completely. They were not going to enable me anymore. And so it was pretty much just my grandparents. And so, I wasn't really eating at the time, it was just a lot of drugs and alcohol. And so my grandmother would take me to lunch and, feed me. And when she would turn her back, I would steal money out of her purse or whatever. And, or we'd go to her house, and I'd have a car then. And so she'd have to bring me everywhere. And when we were there, she kept cash, which in hindsight, Mimi, not the brightest move, but, she's great. I love her to death. But at the time, she would keep cash in an envelope, a bank envelope. And so I would just take cash out of there. And then I would, that night or that afternoon, I would find whatever. I was a daily pot smoker for about 15 years. So I would get some pot, smoke, and then go out that night and drink usually till I blacked out. And then if I didn't black out, I would find whatever drug that anybody had. I was an alcoholic first. I loved alcohol. But if somebody had drugs, I was doing them. And this was 7 days a week at the time. I did not have a house. I was kind of bouncing from couch to couch. And that was my life for probably a couple of years until I ended up, like, people just got tired of me living on their couch, you know? Like, who wants the guy on the couch, you know? And so I burned pretty much every bridge, and I ended up homeless. I slept outside a lot, you know. I slept at the homeless shelter for a couple of months. And then I stole a checkbook from somebody, and I forged their name in the checkbook and wrote a check to myself. And by the time that happened, I had been arrested a few times for a few different things, like remaining after forbidden, which is like trespassing. I had been arrested a few other times for outstanding warrants for a few different things. I don't even remember, but the forgery thing, that got me arrested and put in jail for a little bit.
What was going through your mind during this whole time? Because I would imagine it sounds like just it's all about you.
Oh, for sure.
You're trying to find your next
Fix.
your next fulfillment, your next satisfaction. And you're trying to find it in all these different things, taking from other people, giving to yourself. What was happening in your mind to sort of justify those things?
I mean, honestly, it was just like to get through each day. You know, like there wasn't any thought behind anything that I did. You know, it was all like it was all like survival. But I needed to drink, like, because I needed to not feel how my life was just falling apart. At this time, my family had completely cut me off. I have a younger sister, and she and I are really close today, and we were even closer then, but my parents wouldn't let me have anything to do with her. They wouldn't let me spend any time with her. And because of who I had become as a person, you know, and I didn't, you know, so like, I mean, like looking back on it, like I wasn't concerned about where I was living or the fact that I was sleeping outside. You know, like, I mean, I remember there being like this group of bushes somewhere. And I remember sleeping in the middle of those bushes. Like today I look back on that and like, I mean, like, I can't even imagine my mindset at that time. And I was like 22 years old at this time. And I was a kid, like still a kid, you know? And it's just like the only thing that mattered to me was not being sober. That's it.
Wow.
And whatever I could do, whatever I needed to do to make that happen is what I was going to do. And I didn't care who got hurt. I stopped caring about who got hurt when I was probably 15 or 16. And if you know me today, like, I mean, you know me today, and it's really out of character. That's not who I am today. Like, yeah. Lauren and I were talking, my wife and I were talking this morning or last night, and like my mindset today is completely unselfish. Everything that I do today I think about other people before I do it. The boys, my wife, people here, I think about other people before I do anything today. And I think that psychic shift is just like, I look back on that behavior and I'm just like, only God could have done that because I couldn't have done it. And you just don't, you stop caring. And it's just like, you can't care. Like, the only thing that mattered to me at the time was not being sober. And it's a hard life. It's not fun. It's lonely. My mom would say, I'm sure that if you asked her today, and my grandmother, and I'm sure my dad too, because my dad and I are really close today. I'm sure that if you asked them, they would have been relieved if they would have gotten a call from a jail to have found out that I had been arrested or possibly even dead, because they didn't have to worry anymore.
Wow.
They had no idea where I was. For a year and a half, maybe I was just gone. I mean, it's a lonely, lonely life. And, I mean, people today, I see that when I'm driving down the street, I still see those, not the same people, but people who are obviously struggling with what I went through. And I feel for them because I know that I didn't want to do that. But it's like something like something is different. Something was different inside of me that just I didn't know how to live normally, you know?
And then everything changed, right?
Yeah, everything changed. So
What happened?
Well, so I went to jail, and I was in jail for a little while. And oddly enough, jail is better than being homeless because you have food there and a bed. So, but when I got out, I my parents had introduced me. Well, let's back up for a second. So, I went to jail, and when I was in jail, I had rekindled some relationships with some people that I had met in a 12-step program. And those relationships kind of got me through a tough time in while I was in jail. And so when I got out of jail, I ended up in like a halfway house, sober living environment, where I was required to go to 12-step meetings, so many nights a week. But so I did. And I got involved with the community, but I didn't stay sober. I got involved with the community, and then I started drinking again. And then I got sober and started drinking again, I think 2 or 3 times. But then the final time I got sober, so Caleb, my oldest son, he was 3 years old, and 3 or 4. And then my youngest son, Elliot, was 18 months old. And I was going through a rough divorce and with their mom. And I knew that their mom was just like me. And she's an addict. And I knew that one of us needed to be straight for the boys. Well, I knew where I could go to to be the dad that they needed me to be. And so I immediately went back to the 12-step program that had saved my life before. And I reconnected with those people that I had met before, that I had, developed relationships with before. And I just fell into it, and that became my life, was developing a relationship with people who were going to get me through that tough time, and developing a relationship with God, which at that time, in this 12-step program, they they tell you to find the God of your own understanding, which is, to me, God is God. God is the God that you and I believe in, that we come to church to worship every Sunday. And so it was easy for me, but I still had some reservations. I still had some questions about the God that I believed in. And but this 12-step program was where I could go to help me, like, to connect with these people, build on a relationship with God, and where God could help me to remove these addictions, whatever they were at the time. And so that's what I did, and I threw myself into it.
How would you describe your life now compared to that time?
I mean, it's two different lives, completely two different lives. I mean, so after the 12 step, I mean, while being involved with the 12-step program, there was still something missing for me. My dad calls it a God-shaped hole, and there was still something missing for me. And I think that I just wasn't finding what I needed from this 12-step program. And that's okay. Like, I want to be clear, for anybody who watches this, these 12-step programs save people's life. They saved my life. And I think it's important for people to know that. They have saved my wife and I both, and my dad. We got sober in these rooms, in the rooms of these 12-step programs. And they saved people's lives, and they saved all of our lives. And I can name hundreds of people, thousands of people, and I've watched it happen. But I think there comes a time in people's lives in these rooms where they need more from God. I think, and even here, even every day, we need more from God, but we have to seek that. And so there came a time in my life where that just wasn't working for me anymore, and I needed to seek more. And so a childhood friend of mine invited me to church. And after a couple weeks of reservation, I finally came, and I thought that was what my life was going to be like, where I was just going to come to church every Sunday, and that was it. But again, something happened, and I just knew that I needed more. There was something here that I needed more. And so I sought out Jeremy. Well, I sought out somebody to help get involved. And once I connected with somebody on the serve team, my life really changed. So my life today is, I mentioned earlier that everything about my life is unselfish today. Nothing that I do, I can't even tell you when the last time that I thought only about myself was. Like, I just don't, that's not even my way of thinking anymore. My way of thinking is, what can I do to either help the person next to me, or what can I do to serve God? That's my life today. And that's not even that. If you would have told 22-year-old Donnie Ray, like, hey, when you're 41, this is going to be your thinking, 22-year-old Donnie Ray would have said, with a lot of foul language, you're crazy, dude. You know, like that's just not normal for me. My life today consists of church, work, school, and family. That's my life. And I wouldn't change it for anything. My kids, they love the Lord. They're involved in church. Last night we had kids spend the night at our house, and we do this thing with the boys where we pray, and Lauren opens us up in prayer, and everybody has to go around the room. Go around in the family and say something, say a prayer request, an unselfish prayer request. And so that's how we pray as a family before bed. And so last night, we went into the boys' room and they had friends spending the night. And so we're not, I'm not going to change how I am, how my family is run just because somebody's here. So we did that. And these kids mentioned something unselfish, that they wanted an unselfish prayer request that they wanted to share. And so I like today I get to watch my family spread the word of the Lord. And that's just not like to other kids. That's just not normal for me. That's not what I thought my life was going to look like. Would I change it? Absolutely not. I love my life today. And I mentioned this before. Everything that I've ever been through in my life has led me up to this point. It's part of my story. I wouldn't be who I am today had I not been homeless, been to jail, been arrested, been stolen money, fill in the blank with everything that I've ever done. And it wasn't easy. But I'm not ashamed of it, and I don't regret any of it.
It's really incredible to hear how your life was compared to how it is now, just like the complete 180. What would you say to someone who right now is struggling with these areas that you have experience in?
There's somewhere to go. There are people out there who want to help you. I want to help you. People that you don't know love you. People that don't know you love you. And they want to see your life change the way that my life has changed. The only way that I get to keep what I have is if I continue to give it away, is if I continue to spread the word. If I just take my life, take everything that I have today and leave it on this page, then I'm not giving God the glory for everything that he's done for me. I have to continue to spread the word. And there are people out there who need to hear it. And those people who are homeless, in jail, wherever they are, in treatment centers, which we didn't even touch on that. Did that too. I've been to rehab before too. But we, people like me, want to spread the word to you, not just because I want to continue to have the life that I have, but I want to see you have a better life than me. My life is fantastic, but I want to see people. I want to see the fire grow inside of other people. I want to see the light go off inside of somebody when they realize they don't have to fight anymore. And I don't care where they get the help from. Like, personally, I don't care. Where I go. I'm here, but there are 12-step programs that want to help people. There are churches that want to help people. There's so many places that people can go. They just have to make the decision. And it's a hard decision. It really is a hard decision. And sometimes it takes other people making that decision for you to give you that nudge. But there are people out there who want to help you, and we're here. You just have to look. And I mean, don't, and if you're there and you're thinking about leaving, in this 12-step program that I was in, that I still am a part of, they have a saying, don't quit before the miracle happens. So don't give up, because God has a plan for your life that's bigger than you could have ever imagined. And I know that from personal experience.
Your story is incredible. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your
Absolutely.
vulnerability, for just sharing these really tough things that happened. But I know that people listening are going to be impacted by it. So thank you so much for being here, Donnie.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.